Hi all, welcome to part 7, module 5, computer networks. So we were discussing the supporting protocols of network layer. We started our discussion with the ICMP protocol, then ARP protocol, right? So we saw both of them in detail. Now let's move on to our discussion on some other network layer protocols, supporting protocols. Like the reverse address resolution protocol, the bootstrap protocol, bootp, and the dynamic host configuration protocol, DSCP. All the three were doing a single task, that is the physical address to logical address mapping, right? So what we seen in ARP is a protocol that converts your logical address. What is logical address? For example, this IP address, right? So given this logical address, this ARP is capable of converting this logical address into physical address, right? Logical address, for example, the IP address. If we are using the network layer protocol to be IP protocol, IP particularly say IPv4, whatever it is. Physical address, it could be some Ethernet address, right? The MAC address, MAC 48-bit address, right? So IP, of course, 32-bit address. So whatever it is. So this is a thing that we covered so far. Now we are going to see the opposite situation, and first where it is needed, everything we will see. So this part is clear for you, right? The ARP we covered in detail, and why ARP is needed and how it is to be done, like the ARP request, replay, everything is clear for you. Now let's see the opposite process, that is given a physical address to someone. That particular protocol software is supposed to give you back the equivalent logical address, the opposite process, and where it is needed we will see, right? Who will do this task? Of course, the obvious choice is the reverse ARP, which is supposed to work just reverse to what ARP is working. So like that people started thinking, and just like ARP, reverse ARP is again a network layer routine, and we will see how this reverse ARP is doing, and it is having certain limitation. Maybe you can tackle, but later people thought of handling it in a better way to overcome all those problems that reverse ARP is facing, and then they come up with a better protocol called the bootstrap protocol, which is also doing the same task, that is physical address to logical address conversion. And again, this bootstrap protocol they thought of improving, and finally they come up with the one which we are using right now, that is the dynamic host configuration protocol, right? So if you look at this reverse ARP and ARP, you can see that both ARP and reverse ARP, they were network layer protocols, right? They are running in the network layer protocols. But one difference is like this, bootp and DSCP are application layer protocols, in the sense they can look at the higher layers also. They are working in higher layers, but these people are working in network layer. So they are having this reverse ARP particularly, which you are going to see, is having some limitation. That is because it is a network layer protocol, right? So as its purpose or the need of such a conversion is very obvious, right? In most of the cases you can see that this physical address logical address conversion is something a mandatory kind of thing. So people started thinking of doing it in a much better way. So that is how they come up with bootp, and then further they improved it to DSCP. So when we discuss these things, keep this in mind. If you are looking at the syllabus, you will see the reverse ARP and bootp. So these two things were only mentioned in the syllabus, but I may be giving more attention to DSCP even though it is not there, because it is the one that we are currently using, right? Yes, of course we will cover reverse ARP, then after mentioning its problems we will go to bootp. After discussing it, I may spend some time for DSCP also, because you are supposed to know this, because this is what we are currently using, and this reverse ARP is obsolete of course, and bootp and DSCP is used mostly, and it's somewhat still some servers are there, some nodes were still using bootp, but it is this DSCP is somewhat backward compatible with the bootp. So gradually this bootp is also being removed, and this DSCP is what you will be seeing for this conversion in our current network. So that is why we give more attention to DSCP, but we will cover all the three, of course. So hope the conversion is clear for you, right? Yeah. So the situation is like this. There are occasions in which a host knows its physical address, right? But the requirement is like, so you have to understand one thing. So when two people are communicating each other, say host 1 is trying to communicate with the host 2. This host 1 is knowing host 2's IP address or the logical address, right? Logical address. Let me take host 2's logical address to be logical address 2. Similarly, host 1 is also having some logical address. Let it be logical address 1. Say host 1 is physical address B, physical address 1, and here it will be physical address 2. If that is the case, what happened is with the ARP is, so ARP is something that is run by this host 1 for getting the physical address of host 2. So that is a kind of requirement, right? So host 1 will call ARP, right, and it will give the so when host 1 is calling ARP, it will give the logical address of host 2. That means logical address 2 will be passed as input to ARP, and ARP will reply it back with the physical address of, so that is 2. This physical address 2, that is physical address of host 2. So this is how ARP is running. But here, what about reverse ARP? The host 1 wants to know its own logical address. See, that difference is clear, right? In ARP, host 1 is trying to get the physical address of host 2. I mean the other one, because host 1 want to have a communication with the host 2, and host 1 is knowing host 2's logical address, and given this logical address, what is physical address of host 2. So that for that purpose, ARP is used. And let me take a different color. Yeah. But tell me, what is the use of reverse ARP? Of course, host 1 will again call reverse ARP, but now it is for a different purpose. For running reverse ARP, host 1 will be passing its own physical address, right? And this it will be given to that reverse ARP protocol, and that is supposed to return its own logical address, right? Logical address 1 only. So see, so this is about myself and this is about the other one. Of course, ARP is doing the logical address to physical address translation, where reverse ARP is doing physical address to logical address conversion, just opposite to what ARP is doing. And also the context, right, where it is needed. So here, the purpose is like, I just know my physical address only, and I don't know, I forgot somewhere my logical address, and I am asking someone to get me what is my logical address. So that is a situation where reverse ARP used. But in case of ARP, this host 1 is knowing its own logical address, physical address, everything, and the destinations logical address is also known to host 1. Let me put this tick mark here. And what it don't know is the physical address of destination. But here it is different. Hope it is clear, right? Don't make it confused where it is needed. Now let's see why it is so. Why we are having a requirement like we want to know our own logical address. So this may happen particularly in two cases. First case, it is about diskless station. So normally, the physical address, physical address is of course, so whenever any machine is concerned, any host is concerned, it is having the network interface card, right? So inside this network interface card, always that physical address will be available. Right, so everyone can understand its own physical address easily by looking at the network interface card. It is something permanently hardwired in the network interface card of any host, right, any machine. But the problem is, what about the logical address, physical address, right? So normally that logical address will be so it is not part of the network interface card, right? So as soon as a logical address is being provided, say by the internet service provider or some other someone else in the network, so as soon as you are getting the logical address, you are supposed to keep that logical address in your ROM, right? So maybe okay. So inside the memory of this particular host, say permanently it will be there in ROM. You can configure the ROM of your machine with the IP address of your machine, and maybe the sometimes subnet mask, default gateway address, right? So all those things you may see, like so when you see the network configuration, you can see what is your IP, what is the subnet mask, right? IP address of your machine, what is the subnet mask, all those things we already seen, and of course the default gateway address, right? What else? Then this DNS server address, see, just verify this whether you can see all those things in your network configuration file, right? So that is the thing. So all those things are there in our computer memory, right? But what about a diskless machine? So all those things are supposed to be right in the secondary memory or something like a ROM. But what will happen with a diskless machine where such a secondary memory option is not there, right? So the diskless station is just booted and it is having some limited memory, so there it is not having any secondary memory at all. So that is the case. So that kind of a machine you can imagine. So simply it will be having some main memory and its terminal. So with that the machine is trying to run, and that time as soon as it is booted up, the station can find its physical address by checking its interface, of course, that is a network interface card, but it don't know its IP address because it's a configuration file, everything normally we will get inside the secondary memory or disk or some kind of permanent storage, say ROM also. But those things are not there with the diskless machine, and that is where it is supposed to get the IP address as soon as it's booted up. So this is one situation, and another situation is like this is something familiar for all of us, like an organization does not have enough IP address to assign to each station. It needs to assign an IP address on demand. So this could be done by maybe from the organization part, say just like the organization may purchase some 256 IP address, right? 256 IP addresses were purchased, like maybe from some service provider or regional internet registry of IANA somewhere. The organization purchases say some 256 addresses, but after some time the organization is now having some 300 machines. So what they will do is they will try to manage all the 300 machines with this 256 addresses. So at any time some of the machine may not get net connectivity. In worst case, if all of them are login, I mean all of them try to access a network. So like that the organization could manage, or particularly the internet service provider also sometimes will do like that. But now the situation is different. Sometimes back those who were using internet may face this. Sometimes you are trying to log into maybe your broadband connection, you may not get the connectivity. So the thing is that particularly in the peak time, other time you may be getting connectivity. So they may be having some 1000 IP addresses with them, and they may be handling some 2000 customers. So what they will do is, with the assumption that all the 2000 customers were not going to use the internet at a particular moment, so who are all active, they will provide the IP, right? And after some time so someone is stop using, and that IP will be taken back, it will be given to someone else. So like that they will manage. But in worst case, maybe in the peak time like evening time or some where most of the people are using the internet, they may struggle. But of course these things were solved as of now, but this is a situation sometimes back. So whatever it is, if we have something requirement is like we have to assign the IP address on demand. So the IP address, every machine will not be knowing its own IP address. This whenever the station want an IP address, want to get connected to the internet, they will ask for the IP, and to its reply IP address will be assigned to it. Maybe you may observed sometimes back, I don't know. So when you turn on, so this is not the case right now. Sometimes back when I studied, I observed like that. So when you turn on, it will write like DHCP running, and it is configuring like that. You will see when you boot up your machine. So that time only that configuration is happening, right? So it is not something that happened before in a permanent way. So there also the machine will be knowing its physical address only. And of course it will ask the one who is providing the IP address for a logical address, maybe for a short time, duration of time, in a least basis, in a least way. So these are all the situations where you don't know your IP address, but what you have is your permanent Ethernet address. So how you will manage it? So the first solution is reverse ARP. We will see this first, then BOOTP, and then DSCP. So the reverse ARP protocol finds the logical address for a machine that knows its physical address, right? The purpose is that one. So each host or a router is assigned one or more logical IP address. If you are looking at a router, you can see that for different interface connected with the different network, typically it will be having more than one IP, or it can be having a single IP, whatever it is. So which are unique, of course, and independent of the physical or the hardware address. To create an IP datagram, of course, at network layer, the communication will happen only with the help of IP address. So IP address is usually read from a machine's configuration file, and that is typically stored in the disk, right? Some secondary memory is required. So as soon as the machine boot up, that will be loaded into RAM and it will proceed. So the configuration file is typically stored in the disk file. However, if you are looking at the diskless machine, that is usually booted from its ROM. I mean, it's not having any secondary memory, but minimum booting functionality, that code could be stored in the ROM. So it will just run that and it will try to load the operating system, and also which has minimum booting information, right? So we can't load this ROM because it's not having secondary memory, just it is depending a ROM which is of smaller size and which contain minimum information for the booting purpose only. So normally the IP and all other configuration things will not be there with this ROM. So the ROM is installed by the manufacturer. So that is one difficulty, the space shortage. And another difficulty is typically the ROM will be installed by the manufacturer, and it cannot include the IP address because the IP address on a network is typically assigned by the network administrator, and it may vary also. So you can't depend on the ROM manufacturer who manufactures the ROM and who permanently code that operating system loading procedure, everything into that ROM. We can't depend them for configuring the IP address even. So because typically this IP address management is done by the network administrator. So due to all those reasons, the machine may not be in a position to remember its IP address all the time. So the machine gets its physical address by reading network interface card, of course, right? So that will be unique locally within that LAN. So it can then use the physical address to get the logical address by using reverse ARP protocol. So that is the purpose of reverse ARP, just opposite to ARP. So the just like ARP, here also it will have a reverse ARP request, and that is being created and broadcasted on the local network, right? Just like ARP request. So reverse ARP request will be broadcasted with its own MAC address. So I don't know my IP, right? That is what the reverse ARP request is saying. I don't know my IP and this is my MAC address. Please assign me an IP, right? But in ARP request, it is like this is the MAC address of some other machine. You are in the network. You please respond me with your IP. So that is what ARP is asking. It is giving the MAC address of some. I am repeating again and again to make it clear in your brain. So in ARP, it's asking like, so this is the MAC address of someone else in this network or in a different network. I don't know your IP. You please respond. So everybody will look at the ARP request and it will check its MAC IP address with what is coming in the ARP request, and if there is match, it will be responding back with its MAC address. But if you look at reverse ARP request, it is something different. I don't know my own IP address, but what I can remember is my MAC address, and if someone is capable of telling me, please tell me why my IP, or please assign me my IP, something like that, right? So anyway, both are broadcast only. So another machine, so now it is a duty of some specific machine because everyone else will not be knowing it. So maybe a reverse ARP server that is there in the local network, which knows all the IP address and the corresponding MAC address, that mapping, will respond with a reverse ARP reply. As usual, reverse ARP request will be broadcasted. Otherwise, it has to remember the address of that particular reverse ARP server. Then it can do unicasting, of course. But if they don't know, no need to worry. Simply broadcast. It will correctly reach. Others will ignore, and only that reverse ARP server will take it, and it can replay back by a unicast message, because in that request message its address everything is available, right? Sender's address everything is available. The requesting machine must be running a reverse ARP client program, and the responding machine is supposed to run the reverse ARP server program. So just like a ARP client and server, here you can see the reverse ARP client on the requesting one, and reverse ARP server on the responding one. So right, so that is typically a specialized server. Right, yeah. Why reverse ARP is obsolete now? So that is the question. So that is why we moved on to that BOOTP protocol or DSCP. The reason is like there is a serious problem with reverse ARP. The broadcasting is happening in the data link layer, right? So with an Ethernet frame, that reverse ARP will make that reverse ARP request packet, and that is a Ethernet or the data link layer broadcasting. So the physical broadcast, or typically we can call it as a physical broadcast, because we have broadcasting in the network layer also. That is something different. So here it is physical broadcast in the data link layer, where you can see all those 48 bit in the destination could be some ones, indicating that's a broadcast. Particularly in case of Ethernet, it will be all one. That does not pass the boundaries of the network, of course. So this will happen only inside that network only. And suppose a reverse ARP server is located somewhere outside this network, it will not get a reply properly. So the requirement is like this, means that the administrator has several network or several subnets. It needs to assign a reverse ARP server for each network or subnet. So how many subnets work or networks were there? The administrator is supposed to keep a reverse ARP server at each and every smaller networks, because the reverse ARP request is not able to cross the network boundary, as it is happening as a broadcast in the data link layer. Similar thing is what happened in reverse ARP also, but they handled the ARP in a different way. So that you have to understand, the purpose is different. So it's in that case it's fine, we can handle it in the data link layer itself, because on hop like that communication will proceed on, because for as part of communicating something, first I need my immediate neighbor's MAC address only. So as soon as the data reaches the immediate neighbor, then I need its successor's MAC address. So like that, at every hop I just need my neighbor, my immediate next hop MAC address only. So in that way I can communicate. So it's enough to run everything in the data link layer. But here it is not that case. IP address is something I just need for any communication to begin. So at the beginning itself, I just as soon as I boot up, it's my immediate requirement that I want my IP address somehow as early as possible. Then only I can start my actual communication. So that is the demand. So that is why we can't depend this routine just running as a broadcast message in the data link layer. We can handle it, but it's somewhat data link layer. It's reached by the router, then it will be passing to next one, like that it has to find and giving back. That is not that much faster, and demand is something high. So people started thinking of doing this reverse ARPs, this responsibility of reverse ARP to be done in a better way. So that is why they started thinking to tackle this problem in the higher layer. So far in reverse ARP as a network layer protocol, it's trying to tackle in the lower layers. So when it comes to BOOTP or DSCP, you can see that it is something handled in the higher layer. So that is why those protocols are having relevance. And of course something like that is not needed in ARP. So that is why still now we are handling that responsibility of ARP just with the ARP only. We didn't move on to any application layer protocol for that. But reverse ARP, it is something more demanding, right? In that way we can think. So this is the reason that reverse ARP is almost obsolete right now. The protocols like BOOTP and DSP are replacing reverse ARP in the current scenario. Yes, with this we will wind up this reverse ARP, and in the next video we will see the BOOTP protocol and followed by DSCP. Yeah, thanks for watching.